right, you should be good to go, my friend.
Excellent, thank you.
I think you want to no, seeing what's going on here. Yep, back and forth with the arrow.
Well, thank you very much for the time. Let me get seated here. This is AI model railroad. These two graphics are pitiful, and I think there's a reason I left them in here by design. I started really in April, so I really did a deep dive in AI, and there's many of them out there, several dozen in fact. And I got down to Perplexity and Claude.ai. Claude absolutely is horrible for graphic design. It really is, and I left it like that. Does PowerPoint presentations for business? Wonderful. It's super for research, but in any event, this is the cartoon characters it came up with. They're ugly. But so take a little dive into AI. First of all, I'm model railroader. I am not a computer scientist. I've been out of the IT field for quite a number of years. When I moved to Louisville, 99% of any question asked, I did on the top of my head. The other 1% I researched. I'm at the point now, I'm proud to say that 99% of all questions, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not in that field anymore. But I did do some research here. So what is it? In plain English, it will communicate you in English and several other languages, by the way. Think about it as a tool, not a magic box, not a threat. It's just like when the PC came on, like why would I ever have a computer? Now almost all of us have one called our cell phone. It's just an evolution. It can do good. It can do bad. It's how you use the tool. It's just that. And then what we're going to go cover here is what it can and cannot do for you as a modeler. Why did I choose Claude over other options? I narrowed it down to Perplexity and Claude. I was doing research on some patent work in the model railroad world, and I found Claude was consistently consistent. It gave better results in the research, but it does make mistakes. And I'll show some of those to you later. So I focused on that one and how can you put it to work? So the software is based on an enormous amount of text. When Russ asked the question, his question was for the New York Central in this particular year, what other railroads did it connect with? And it researched thousands and thousands of records and came back in under a minute with a detailed report formatted exactly as I had asked it to do. We'll get into how that happens. And so I sent it to Russ and he seems pleased with it. It can read, write, and respond in plain English or other languages if you prefer to do it that way. Just as a lark, I was written one of my AP columns. I said, would you please rewrite this in Victorian English as though I were William Shakespeare? It did. It was wonderful. I said, Star Trek actually had some linguists develop a Vulcan and Klingon lexicon, not a complete language. It translated into Vulcan and Klingon for me. And the Klingon version was you will participate in the AI or we'll just chop your head. I mean, it was really fun. I liked it. It was great. It does not think, it says it is, but it predicts what a useful answer looks like. It is sometimes wrong. You always have to verify the facts. We'll get into that a little bit. If you have questions, stop me now. So research, writing, planning, coding, documentation. I have it write a technical planning guide for me. So I model North Central Florida in the current era. And it helps, the manual writes, how do I model? It has a style guide. What do you mean by a style guide? I took a document and I said, I like the way this one is formatted, called the SJA, St. John's and Atlantic. That's the railroad style guide. It is probably in its 30th revision by now. As we keep saying, no, 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 what I want you to do is this, I want you to do that. One of the instructions in the style guide, never, ever delete a file. I was working on something and I was in revision 4.3, let's say, and I got to 4.4 and it was off on some tangent. I have no idea what it did. I said, wait a minute, forget it. I have an archive file. I said, forget that. Let's look, go back to 4.3, correct this information and give me 4.5. And it corrected its errors. They just went off on a tangent somewhere. The style guide is just that. I usually except for patent documentation, some other stuff like that, where do the research, and you have to keep those work like that. You want to have a history. So again, you have, how did I get to this point? It can work in the background while you're doing something else. It can actually work directly on your computer, something called co-work, but it takes up a lot of the time there. But we'll get a little fun about that. What it can do, it can write and edit documents. I'm a nerd. My education's in physics and math, and I write that way, and it tones it down to the way I want it done. So we developed the style guide interactively together. Research prototype details, the various railroads in north central Florida in the current era. Uh, it drafts structured outlines. This started out as a presentation, and have you seen the thing? Okay, you're on the same one. I'm looking at some else over here. So we'd outline the clinic for me. It can write code. You'll see later. I built. There's an art show at the church recently, and I built the locomotive maintenance facility at the Kennedy Space Center. And I said, I want to have some animation in here. Not only do I want to turn lights on and off, I want machine sounds. I have a fellow with an acetylene torch cutting a pipe in half. There's a piece of fiber optic, the orange LED lights up, so the torch looks like it's lit. There's an LED inside the pipe. It slowly goes from 0 to 3 volts. The pipe starts glowing, and then water vapor comes out because he's doing it next to the fuel drums, and red and orange LEDs flash, and all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off. And it's a whole animation sequence, and it did all the programming for me. And I said, well, here's your what do you call it, Mike? Sketch. I said, great. I plugged in the USB port. I said, and here's the Arduino. Program it. I didn't do anything other than plug it in. It's kind of handy. I like that. Answer technical questions. How do you wire this? How do I interface with that? It has all that good stuff out there. Maintain formatting. The style guide that I wrote. Actually, I have about 5 different style guides, depending on what I'm doing. And so it keeps formatting. I have a certain way I like my files named. It's not the way it does it, but it does it my way for my projects. Generate ideas. I have collected over 3,000 dad jokes, puns, and other different things. I even have them categorized. I said, why don't I have Santos is a little place south of Ocala, if you know where that is, which is north of Orlando, a little wide spot in the road. I said, we're going to have a drive-in theater there and take these 3,000 jokes and so forth and have them scroll on the display screen. Please design all electronics for me. Tell me what screen I should use. And it has a detailed design on how to do that. How nice. Uh, documentation stuff I mentioned. I just use it for that as well. So what it cannot do, it cannot build a model for you, at least not today. Paint, weather, or apply decals. Can't do that. However, if you have a machine over here that is programmed to do that, an interface really could be done to do that. So it can't operate your locomotive, but if you write an interface GMRI, it probably could. I haven't touched that field. It can reference, it can't see your layout unless you give it a photograph. You can give it a photograph of anything. Darcy, you got your prop here? Or, all right, here he is, prop. Yesterday I was having dinner with my wife, we're just sitting at the table, and I saw this laying on the table. I said, what in the world is this? I looked, it's got these little sharp edges on it, but they're not very sharp. I said, what in the world is that thing? So I took a photograph, close-up photograph of it, uploaded it to Claude. 30 seconds later says, that is the inside of a mechanical pencil. So when you push the button, it advances the lead. I said, no, it's not, because my mechanical pencil's in another room. And my wife said, I took this cleaning my purse and took this pen out, and it fell apart. And I said, I recognize that from childhood. That's a little thing when you push the top of a ballpoint pen that makes the writing parts go in and out. That's what it is. It's a piece of garbage, but it's not 100%. But I do use it for plan identification, all kinds of good stuff there. So it can look at pictures and interpret them for you. You can use it I've used it with Third Planet, the drawing program, and say, analyze this. Do you see any flaws? Yeah, it comes back with some stuff, and it's been. It does not replace your judgment and experience. It is a machine, and it can't. I put this thing in here. Pause for effect. Replace your membership in Division 8. It put that in there. It's supposed to have put that in my side that I was seeing. It left it in there. I said, screw it. I'm going to let you know. I didn't give it enough instruction. So why Claude? That's the one I use. It doesn't mean the one you use. For graphic design, I talked to someone in that field, and they said, you need to use Gamma. Gamma is the go-to AI for graphic design. An example there, in Florida, said, Claude, give me a diagram of Florida. It does. I said, okay, make it green. It does it. I said, well, put the states above Florida, just the bottom of them, in this graphic. It did that. I said, okay, now please put a 2 pixel wide sand colored out around Florida because there's beaches. It did. I said, cut an opening for the St. Johns River in Tampa Bay. It ran for 2 hours and never could get it right. I said, finally, I'm wasting time here. And and that's why I said, okay, you don't know how to do stuff like that. It finally opened Tampa Bay, it was a kickstand. I'm like, what the? Anyway, I never could get it to work right. It's not good, but it can go through existing documentation faster than you can look it up. I had a question about Third Planet just for the meeting. I said, I forget how to do this. It says, what's in the documentation on your computer? I said, I'm thinking, like, yeah, I know that. But it said, here's the 3 commands you need to give us. I just did it. It's pretty nice. I like that. Clear, consistent prose following your style guide. You tell it how you want things written. Back in my UPS days, I had a group of 5 professional writers that worked for me. Um, and they wrote technical manuals. 5 people writing different chapters at the same time based on the style guide. I knew who wrote which chapters, but if you read those books, you would thought it was the same author. AI does the same thing. If you tell it, this is how I want it written, so that they use consistent language. Uh, it can execute multi-step, instructions reliably using, including a markup convention. You'll show that in the next slide, I believe. Uh, The best way to use it is in called projects. So I have a project, let's say for layout design, a project for the Santos Drive-In Theater or the Locomotive Shop. Those are individual projects and it stores that online and knows about them. And if I say, well, I want to do this, well, that conflicts what you told me to do over here, and it gives you that feedback. It's real. Safety features, everything I'm doing. So like when I'm doing the electrical part, I said, refer to industry standards for electricity, so I don't do something. So when we have the power cabinet, what does that do? Safety first. And, is what we're trying to do. So how do you train it? It's like training a puppet, quite honestly. You got to interact with it constantly. There's a few files that are very important. For example, it has no memory unless you provide context. This is what I modeled. These are the prototypes. St. John's Atlantic is St. John's River in the Atlantic Ocean. That's where that came from. It's not a real railroad. So I have these files here. One is about me. Who am I? It's not everything about me, but how I think. What is my education like? What is my output supposed to look like? It reads it for everything. It reads the style guide and how I increment revision numbers and stuff. It is, I go X point Y, period, single digit afterwards. Um, the more context you can give it, what are you trying to do here? What is your era are you in? The better it can answer the question. So since I tell it I'm in the modern era, it won't give me any information about steam locomotives at the Kennedy Space Center. That would make no sense. So you give it those boundaries. But once in project, it reads it every single time. That's the instructions it follows. There is a fellow, if anyone is seriously interested, email me. His name is Ruben Hassid. I get a I get a newsletter from him every Sunday evening, no cost. He's an AI geek, and the columns they actually are written in a form I can understand them, and I pick up tips from him as to how to grow my knowledge, so to speak. And it's great, especially the price point of being free. I love it a lot. Love it. It really helps. So it'll build a style guide. Like I said, it's pretty simple. I told it use traditional English, write short sentences, write it at the 12th grade level. That's what I wanted it to do. When I was doing my own work back at UPS, long before this, 20 something years ago, 30 years ago, they ran my writing style through and under analysis. My natural writing style is 17th grade. That's not what you want for a manual going out in the field. That's not who we're talking to. Something I do when it gives me output, I look at it and I said, wait a minute, I need to put something new in there. I happen to use it dark green font. Nothing special, that's what we put in my instruction book in the style guide. I will put additions in style in dark green font. Anything that you put in there I don't want, I strike it, we use strike through and I highlight it green. That means get rid of it. And I usually then I put in parentheses, Claude, I got rid of this, but I want you to put this in, but make the language consistent. So I'm very lazy sometimes in the way I do it. Just say, clean it, let me get the language squared away. You get the point. Um, we have a particular convention I use. We'll show that in a moment. Um, tables, how it highlights it. This is how I built it. I found something I liked. And I kept revising it. So I said, okay, update the style guide. I want this portion to look like that. That'll save you a lot of time if you want things looking consistent. So, what does it cost? Free. I use Claude for free until 2 months ago. Now I pay $20 a month. There's a big difference. You get priority if you pay, and you get a lot more. You do far more you just get a lot more time on it. They're called tokens. One thing I learned about tokens, if you go to Word, and we'll explain this later, I give it instructions. I write my instructions over in Word, and I put when you get to this threshold, stop, prompt, and tell me what you plan to do next, and I will tell you yes or no. And that way, I'm not burning up my time doing it that way. Long documents, they can $20 is worth it for me, but I didn't start that way. The first 3 or 4 months I did it, use the free one, and it shows you how much time you have left. You can upload files, no big deal, but for the paid version, and you can go higher than that. This guy was telling me about Ruben Hassid, he spends $100 a month, but he's running a big ass business. And so it's a big difference. Dave, you had a question?
No.
Oh, you're stretching. Okay, no big deal. But you get priority access. That's kind of nice. So it remembers everything. If you use the chat version, it remembers the conversation in that chat, whether that chat was 5 minutes or 5 days, as long as you keep the chat open. When it ends, it disappears. It has no recollection of it. But if you open a project, it retains it. So I have a project called St. John's and Atlantic Railroad. And then within that, there are sub-projects, and it keeps complete track of it. That knows about all the revisions and everything else. Generally, one topic per chat. Although I did one the other day that was very structured. I said, I have 5 goals that I want you to work on. And I explicitly wrote, use, bullet points and indentations. It likes that a whole lot. And I said, here's what we want to achieve in the electrical side of it. And I detailed every last thing. I said, now when you get to the end of this one, stop and ask for my feedback before you update the document. And I told it, yes, proceed, or no, I want this adjusted here. And it went through all 4 goals. Now the difference is, it's the difference between saying, if you're managing people, I want you to go do that. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't utilize, I'm sorry, pointing at Bob, but that's not utilizing Bob's brain. But if I say, Bob, this is what we're trying to achieve, the standards in our business or railroad, whatever. What how are you going to do that? All of a sudden you get a totally different answer that I wouldn't even thought of because I trust that person. So give it goals more than instruction. That helps a whole lot. Okay. Typical of how a Claude projects, they retain it. It's on there. Develop that style guide. Facts about the layout. As we interact more and more and more, it starts saying, oh, I understand what you're doing over here, but if you do this over here, it conflicts what you told me to do over there. Like, oh, good point. Prototype research. It's fantastic. What year did NASA move to the Kennedy Space Center Railroad moved to 130-pound track? Give me the exact date. Is that when they moved to concrete ties? Yes. It does have. And a planning guide. Tell me in detail how to do things. So we have a chat about the railroad, a personal chat, business chat. You have as many projects. Well, you can have many projects in the free version. There's a limit. I think it's 10. And the paid version, you can have more projects. It also has a feature, we don't dive into now, but it's co-work. We say, well, the file's right here on this computer. Please access it. update it based on what I tell you to do, and save it back to this PC again, increment the date, update the revision number, and it will do that. The problem is it's using your computer. So if I want to send one of you an email, like, oh crap, oh no, I'm kind of stuck right now. So there's a way around that. Get a second computer if you want to do that. But it does great work that way. So interactive, practical tips to get something done. Write your words in Word or text editor you want. Why? Because in Word, if you hit enter and you're in bullet points, you get another bullet point. If you press enter in Claude or Perplexity, it goes off and starts writing instructions. Like, no, I had 12 more things to say to you. So, because they use different interfaces. So I said, I just write them over here Word that allows me to review them. Okay, that's what I want. I just call it my Claude scratch sheet. I do it, paste it over there, hit the enter button, and it runs away with it. It likes bullet points, even indented bullet points. So you say, well, I'm talking about the electrical system, and then you start breaking it down like that. Put it in Claude, hit enter, and off it goes. So I find that a little bit easier for me. Interactive practical. Whoops, I think I hit the wrong button there. I'm on the wrong, sorry. My error. If you state a short, clear objective or goal and try not to have it do everything at one time, send the instruction, review the output. It does make mistakes. And make sure before, make sure you're looking at it. Does this look reasonable to you? In your scale, your era, or whatever. So all of a sudden, again, I'm in the current modern era, and it's telling me about steam locomotives on that space center. Like, no, 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 no. You forgot. You didn't pay attention to the year I told you about. So that's where I go inspect. Provided feedback, like that silly little aluminum device that's going around here from the pen. That's not that important to me. But if I gave it feedback, that will help it learn. It does learn from mistakes and feedback. So here's one that on the business side, I said, I was working on a particular project. And it said gross revenues year one, $750,000. Wow, that's a stretch, but okay, I can see it. Year two, we're up to 2.3 million. Wow, aggressive, but yeah, I can see it. Year three, it's the value exceeded the global economy. I said, well, now, I said, either I am writing a check and buying the world and all you report to me now, or there's a mistake. So obviously there was an error. And rather than looking for it, I said, this is malarkey. Go find it. And it took a few seconds to, I was supposed to add row 5 to row 7 to get row 8. Instead, I multiplied. Well, thank you. But I mean, that's where it's important that, is this a reasonable, you kind of get a feel for it. Does this make any sense in the real world to you? It does make mistakes. And that's one reason I'm very sensitive about the way I do things is update the date, update the revision. I can always go back. One thing I asked, here's an example for each stage, save the current output. I keep an archive file for everything. Never deleting markups go into the save file. So I take an existing file and go, let's say it's one I ran today. It would be, I don't know, KFC maintenance facility 2026-08-15, comma, revision 4.3. That was its output. I will then pick that up, save as, comma, markup capital letters. That means I'm changing this revision 4.3, and I go in there writing in green font on my keypad and doing my thing. I submit it to Claude. I say, okay, make all these changes and do this research for me. Increment the date, and increment, change the date, change the revision. It comes back with 4.4. You can see this is my file naming conventions. If there's one thing missing, the subject. What is it? KFC locomotive facility, comma. I use year to year, month, day, day. That keeps it sequential. I like that, comma, revision X point Y or X point X. It only goes to, let's say, 1.9, then increments to 2.0. I don't want this. That's the way I like it. You may like it something different. I don't care because everybody has their own way of doing things. Claude's native file naming is logical. It's just not something I like. So I don't use it. You can note directly in a document, like I talked about before, Tickenock submitted it to me. So I came in here like on the railroad, there's a tributary to the St. Johns River, just south of Jacksonville, called Pecan Creek that feeds in. I decided to rename it on the layup Shit Creek, because I built this structure, this is the Rabbit Hash, Kentucky, um, general store. Well, I repurposed it and called it the Shit Creek Cattle Company. The main bay is a general store. The side to the left makes paddles and has paddles and life preservers over it. I just thought it was funny. I got an AP award for it, and I decided it had an earlier name that I'm not going to get into. If you're curious, I'll tell you privately. That is concrete. It's inappropriate. But anyhow, providing feedback and follow up. This is an example where I come in there, I write the instructions, it goes over here, refine and repeat. So always tell it, update the date, update the revision number, shorten it, rewrite it in a more formal tone, apply the style guide. What are you trying to do? So if I'm writing an email, a business email, and I ask it to write it one way, or if I'm writing a email to a friend, it'll write it in a more personal fashion, and it helps me a lot because that's not my strength in that area. Research, it does the dig. It is an outstanding tool. So here's an example, real world. You have all these different railroads in North Central Florida. So I said, okay, tell me what the prototype used and what kind of ballast should I use to mimic that using Arizona rock and mineral. And it provided a table for me. So it says the CSX uses this particular roadbed, and then it tells about the main line and a different rail type in the secondary track and the yards. And here's the SKU number for that for them at the Arizona Rock and Mineral, which Fred I think is one that taught me about that. Here it is for the FEC, the East Coast Railroad. Going on, Jacksport, that's the industrial area there in Jacksonville. It's a dirty industrial area, and so the track is different. It's dirtier, and it's just making it look like it is dirtier than the main line does. NASA, it changed. They got the big heavy loads. They do have their own railroad for that, and the Space Force, although back in time the Air Force, all those solid rocket motors, they come from Utah. It's a long haul. Those are heavy. Satellites come from Lord knows all over the place. So this is stuff back in the old day. Date myself, go back to the library and use card catalog and try to find this stuff. I'd probably be there for a week and get nowhere. Here, I got the results in probably a minute or two, formatted nicely and cleanly, and it's in the manual. Just makes so it comes down to, like I was showing it, is the paid version worth it upfront? No. For $20 a month for this kind of research that I can act on immediately, definitely worth it. Asked it how to weather modern rail using Vallejo model color paints. And here's what it came up with. Guys, everybody here can read. Tell me what to use and some suggestions. Makes my life a whole lot easier. This is what it came up with. Is it right for you? I don't know. Depends what you're trying to do. So from plain code, yes, it can do Arduino. This is an example here, plain English. Describe what you want, what the animation should do, and it writes the script, the sketch for you. So in this case, I did an animation. I just wrote it in Word. This is the preliminary animation sequence where I said the alarm sounds, and I have a voice track from John Lyon, a friend of mine's a voice actor. He told people to evacuate the building, find your buddy, and proceed to the evacuation point. Lights come on. There's red and blue lights over the pedestrian doors. They flash alternately red and white on a 2-second cycle. The fog machine that I built activates the fog generator. There's 2 ultrasonic discs that sit on top of a sponge, and then the fans blow air into the box and come out a 2.5-inch fitting, goes through a 1/2-inch aquarium tube into a hole amongst the barrels that are getting ready to burn. So you get what appears to be smoke. It did, I adjusted the time frames and all this good stuff. Done in Word, just, here's my stream of thought. I said, okay, great, go write a sketch for me. It does, like I said, plugged in. the little Arduino Nano and the USB port. I said, make it happen. Boom, it did. It works. You know, there's nothing wrong with writing a sketch. It's not that hard, but it's even easier when I let Arduino do it for me, or Claude do it for me. So that's a little bit about it. Forget about the cigar code, but it's just a primer is all I want to get done today. But if you fire away questions, let me, I'll try to answer them.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.